Well, hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. If you do like the programming you see here and the artists and musicians that I visit with, please be sure and hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Tom Kavanaugh is an American musician who began playing in 3 St. Louis bands during the mid to late 60s. In 1969, Tom formed a duo with guitarist Skip Bauer. During the early 70s, he wrote over 100 songs and made some demo recordings. Tom, along with his brother John, recorded and released the album Dear Friends in 1977. During the next decade, Tom would write songs for the Irish Imports album Expatriate Songs, as well as directing musical reviews and producing concerts in St. Louis for Irish musicians such as Andy Irvine, Michael O'Donnhaill, and Dolores Keane. Mr. Kavanaugh ran his own graphic design firm from 1993 to 2013 and worked in that field until retiring in 2020. More recently, my guest produced, designed, and promoted the sold-out Coming Home concert at St. Louis's Powell Symphony Hall and is currently producing a concert showcasing the work of 2 local symphonic composers. Well, welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you.
Thanks for being here and taking time out. Well, take us back. Where were you born?
Born here in St. Louis. It's where I live now. And good old time in 1948. And this is actually the house that I grew up in. So this is where I was a baby here.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So it's like a full circle kind of a thing. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
I lived in and around Dallas my whole life too. So yeah, a little bit in San Antonio, but mostly here. So yeah, local boys. Yeah. Well, do you recall your early childhood growing up? Was there music in the house?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. My father was born in Ireland, and part of I didn't realize that he was considered a really good singer when he came over here. I never thought of him as a singer, but he sang all the time. And if he had people over, then he would ask my brother or myself, not so much my sister. She was the oldest. My brother was 8 years older than I. And but he would ask us to sing for his groups, usually in the kitchen. He would be sitting around the table, and then he would have one of us come out, and we would sing a song, and usually they'd give us a little money or something. But it was a really big thing. And then actually, my sister wasn't considered a singer at all, but she really taught me how to sing. And she taught me harmony. She had me singing harmony when I was, I don't know, 3 years old or something. And so I learned a lot from her, but my brother was a very, very good singer. And he sang, when he was growing up, he sang in a boys' choir here in St. Louis, the Cathedral Boys' Choir. And so we had music all the time, around here. And I listened to a lot of things, records and et cetera, growing up. So.
Okay, yeah. So he was preparing you early for a busking career by paying you.
Well, maybe so. I wrote a song many years ago, and it's actually kind of a favorite of a lot of people here in St. Louis, people that we know and who've gone to our concerts. But it's called "Songs My Dad Sang," and so we've recorded that. It's on one of our albums, but it really kind of tells the story of how, especially John, my brother, and I, really came about learning how to sing and learning from them, not only him, but his friends, who would come over, usually Irish immigrants, and they would all sit around the table and they sang all the time. So.
All right. Was there a pretty strong Irish community there in St. Louis?
Well, yeah, I think there was. I mean, there was definitely one earlier when my father arrived in like the 30s, and it was very big. My father was on the police force, when he arrived, and he was a plasterer. I also did I did a song called "Carrying the Hod," because he was a hod carrier
Yes, yes.
for the bricklayers, and he worked on he worked on several of the buildings here in St. Louis that are still in existence. Going up, and he'd go up the ladders carrying the hod full of bricks.
Right.
So, but yeah, and then a lot of his friends were, pretty close knit and stuck together pretty well. And there was the Hibernians, the ancient order of Hibernians. My father was a president 1 year or something like that, a couple of years. But so yeah,
Wow.
it was a really pretty tight community then. It's not so much now. It's multiple generations later. So
Sure, sure.
yeah.
Well, you mentioned some records. Can you remember one of the first 45s or albums that you got yourself?
That I bought myself. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. I was very big on 45s. I mean,
Yeah.
I love them. I mean, that's if I had any money at all, that's what I would do. I would go down.
Yeah.
They were like 98 cents then. They were 98 cents for just. But I loved things that were like, I love things that were hits on two sides.
Right.
And so I got a lot of Roy Orbison songs.
Okay.
I got Beach Boys songs. I got things like this. I have an interesting story about that. First of all, my father knew had a lot of friends, and some of them owned bars, and they had jukeboxes at the time.
Yeah.
And so whenever they were cleaning out the jukeboxes, they would send their 45s up to us. And so we would listen to them. I'd listen to everything. The things that I liked most was like, Chopin's Polonaise and things like that were like classical. And I go, oh my God, that's great. So I don't know what they were doing on jukeboxes, but
Right.
who knows? But in any case, I had that. But my father, when I was 13, he went back to Ireland. It was the first time he went back to visit his country. And there, one of my cousins, who I'd never met until later, she sent 245 records back with him. He asked me to go, and I said, "Oh no, I don't want to do that. That was pretty stupid then, but I don't want to go." And so anyway, he brought these 245 records back, and the one was kind of a hit at the time, which was the Unicorn, right? The Irish Rovers.
The Irish Rovers.
And that was on the radio anyway. So I listened to that. The other one I just never even put on because it was dominant. It had 2 tracks on either side. And it was like parlophone or, whatever. I forget what it turned out later on, and I didn't find this out till much recently, much later, that it was the Beatles.
Oh, Parlophone.
Yeah. And they were like an EP or something like this. They were like 2 tracks on every side. And it was like their 4 first hits. This was a year before they came out in America, and I had that the whole time. And then later on, when I got married and moved out of this house, and I came back for a visit one time, all of my records were gone. Oh. My mother threw them away, along with my brother's baseball cards. And Honus Wagner, all these things were like 1920.
Oh, no.
So
I used to play baseball cards too.
Yeah. So the other thing is that was kind of important is, again, with the Irish thing, the Hibernians, there would be all these Hibernian dances, and we would go to those. And I hated Irish music that I heard there. It was like accordion, or it was like maybe some sort of a keyboard, like a piano and fiddles, and and it was nothing really great. I knew all the songs, and I just, oh boy, this is terrible. I don't want to hear this. And when we went to Ireland for the first time, which was when we got married in 1970, we went over to Ireland. I did meet my cousins then, and I went to some of the dances there, and it was not it was about the same thing. They at the time in Ireland, they were really big on American country western, and so I was listening, okay, that's great. And I came back, and the next year, my brother went over to Ireland to meet them for the first time. He was a Jesuit priest. He was a priest, and he went over there in the early 1970s. It might have been 73, and he brought back an album at the time. It was an LP, and he says, "You got to listen to this. It's Irish music." And I said, "John, I hate it. I just do not like it. I can't. I really can't." No. You got to listen to this. And it was in this house. It was down in the basement, and he put the record on, and I go, "Holy cow! What is that?" And it was a group called Planxty,
Yes,
and which was a really seminal kind of group for this Irish Renaissance, musical Renaissance that took place. They were the start. They really were the start of that kind of thing, because they were doing, multiple, rhythms, and they were doing, they were doing transitions from one thing to another, to a vocal, into an instrumental, and they were absolutely brilliant and great musicians. And so that really put us on a new track. I had been, all like popular music of the day and a little bit of like soul and Motown, that kind of thing when I was a teenager. I was in bands. I was just a vocalist. But I was in 3 really good bands, the startup band kind of a thing with some friends. Then I moved on after that, and I joined a bigger band. Then I joined a bigger band, and they were all really good. I had some very, very talented musicians that I worked with, but I couldn't play anything. When I was, I don't know, I was 12 or 13 or something, I wanted a guitar. So my father got me a guitar for my birthday, but it was like one of these really cheap, like $50 guitars kind of thing, which was a lot of money maybe then, but the guitar was not any good at all. I didn't find that out till later, but I could never get it in tune. It wouldn't, the octave wouldn't be true to everything was bad about it. And I gave up on it. So I didn't play anything else. And I had the opportunity to take piano lessons, and I turned it down. I said, no, I don't need this. All I want to do is write. I want to write music. I don't want to play music.
You don't want to play
it. Thinking, Right. And I didn't realize until recently that, that would have made everything so much easier. But I'll tell you, my writing, I do a lot of AI stuff now. And people say, aren't you afraid they're going to take all your, and I said, no. And they're not going to take my stuff. I don't think. If they do, it'll be in bad condition, because I broke so many rules, that if they copied my stuff, they would just be breaking rules all over the place, and it would sound terrible. And with me, it sounded good. It sounded fine, and that's kind of how I wrote. I was a big follower of the Beatles. Now, I was a little bit older when the Beatles came in. I was like 13 or 14, right? And so at the early Beatles, I thought were just kind of for kids, but I thought they were fascinating because they were like really nothing I'd ever heard of before. Yeah. No, I had never heard. It was just so different. And I figured that it was later on. I figured, well, it's their German influence, that they were when they were in Germany and in
Hamburg,
Yeah. And I think that was it, and maybe British, and that they wanted to, they were emulating American style badly, but I thought they were doing very creative things. And other things, like I really was into music and records at that time, and I hated when you got an album and like there would be one good song and then 12 trash songs, and then the next album would be like a duplicate of the first hit. It would sound exactly like it. And the endings were all like fade out endings or whatever the thing is. The Beatles did different things. They always started things differently. They always ended their songs different. Every song that they played, I think that they wrote was ended a different way.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they had very unusual, like not chord progressions, but chord movements,
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 chords that have now become kind of copied over and over in one way or another through the years by many, many people. But they were a big influence, definitely, on me. And one thing that two things. One is that when I started, so let me tell you, when I was in the last band that I was in, the lead guitarist said, the band was breaking up, and he said, let's go up and do something together. And so really, he taught me guitar. And the first thing he did was, he said, we got to get you a good guitar. We have to, I don't even know I had that other guitar, but he said, you got to get a good guitar. And so he knew a place that was in downtown St. Louis. It doesn't exist any longer. And it was a music store. And they really were into keyboards and things like this, but they had a couple guitars that were used. So he took me into this thing, and we looked, and he saw this guitar. He said, this is the guitar you got to get. It was a Gibson J200. And it's an acoustic. It's like a jumbo. And it's got the dandelion weeds on it, if you've on the pick guard. And so it was 25 years old then. That's what the guy said. And it was incredible. It was fantastic. And so he taught me basic things, basically so that we could sing and play together, in coffee shops and stuff like that.
And that's Skip Bauer.
Skip, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so he really taught me the basics for guitar, really. Not theory, that's something that I didn't know at that time. Even though I was in the late 80s, in the late 60s, I was, I had gone to 2 schools and actually majored for 1 year in music. And even though I got good grades, I had transferred, and they wanted me to just take everything over because I really didn't know anything about music. I knew enough to get good grades. I could do the books and listen to the thing and take good tests, but I really did not know anything about music. I mean, I didn't know how much I didn't know until 5 years ago that I started finding out what I didn't know. But one thing that the Beatles, Paul McCartney said at one time in an interview or something back then was that he figured they wrote 100 songs until they wrote one good one. It was the beginning of that, 2,000 hours or whatever the thing is that people say, to master something. And so I decided I was going to write 200 songs, and it was really freeing because I could write terrible stuff. I could just write awful stuff. And I did, a lot. And a little bit by a little bit, I started getting better and better and better. And then later on, years and years and years later, when I, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I was doing a lot reading about Beatles, and my kids gave me books on the Beatles and Paul McCartney and da-da-da-da. And so I read something else that he had said, which was, and actually I'd heard kind of like this several times, and that was, even though he could play a little piano and he could really play guitar, he didn't know anything about theory either. And what he says he did, I did exactly, and that was use the guitar to find the sounds that I liked, and then combining them with different movement to other things that I liked. I thought I was making up chords because I didn't want to play the standard, cowboy chords, the G, C,
three chord.
Yeah, the 3-chord thing. I wanted completely new chords.
Yeah.
And I was doing, at the time, I was finding out about other tunings, And so I was tuning, and I got a book on, different tunings. And I was making up chords in each one of those tunings. and I was writing songs in each of those tunings. Sometimes I would write down, like notate, kind of, do a thing of the fretboard, and then show where my fingers were to make that chord. Sometimes I did that so that I could play it again. Other times I didn't, or I've just lost those. And so really the music, and a lot of them I did not record. So those are lost, pretty much posterity. I do have words, and I could probably figure something out again, and maybe even do something better, but I don't even know if it's worth it. But when a friend of mine that I had gone to grade school with came back from Vietnam, he had brought a bunch of stuff that they bought, like cameras and things like that he bought in Japan or whatever. And he brought a Tascam reel-to-reel tape recorder. Oh. And he said, come over and we'll tape, let's tape some of your songs. By that time, so in like between, I'm thinking 69 and like 73, I really wrote a lot of songs. I mean, I said that I wrote 100, but it was way over 100, So we recorded there with my wife singing and with Skip playing lead guitar, and I'm playing, rhythm guitar or acoustic guitar. I recorded, quite a few songs. I mean, they were just like one take kind of things. And, we made mistakes, and sometimes, it might've been like, one mic or two mics, but I do have those. I still have them.
Still have those. Okay.
And so what I've been doing recently, and I use a program called Suno. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I've heard of it.
But it's fantastic. It's a miracle. It is a miracle. And it's not just, I mean, my kids are so opposed to AI that they won't even have anything. And they've brainwashed their kids. Also, so my grandkids will not, have anything to do with these songs. And I'm saying, it's not AI creating these songs for me.
Yeah.
They're not writing the lyrics. They're not writing the music. I did all that. All I'm doing is I'm putting it in, I'm uploading it into AI, into Suno, and then I'm prompting it to give me other things back. And so it's like, I told someone the other day that it's like if I had all the money in the world and I could hire the best arrangers and orchestrators and musicians, and everybody can do things instantaneously. And I could have a tryout session when I tried out. Let's see, I needed a young woman's voice, a soprano kind of a thing. I could have 1,000 sopranos try out 1,000 different arrangements of my song instantaneously, and I can listen to it.
Yeah,
that's what this is what Suno can do, which is totally amazing. But so I've taken most of the songs that we recorded. I still have about I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 that I haven't run through Suno yet. And some of these are much, much more difficult. And Suno has a hard time really understanding me because I don't write in standard. Oh. I had this one song that I did. So the other thing is that I've done a lot of other music through the years. I've done the things.
Right, great. Well, I wanted to ask you about those demos at the time.
Yeah.
Did you try to sell them to any label?
No. I mean, they were just really for posterity. They're not. The quality is, better than, a cassette tape recorder or something. But that's they were really just so that we would have them. It wasn't to send off. I didn't. I kept thinking, well, maybe something will happen with it. At this time, I was married. We started having kids, and then of course, life gets in the way of. Whatever.
Yes, it does. Right.
So I really, music became something that was more at that time practical. If I could work it into something that another project that I was working on.
Right.
And so even when I did have my own company, which was a graphic design firm, but I had a little recording studio in there. And we did a lot of recording for clients, and I did a lot of writing for clients. And which was if you don't mind, there's another interesting story about that.
Sure, go ahead.
I don't think anybody's going to mind. I hope nobody will mind this if they see it. But I had two really great designers working for me, right? I mean, I had several other people too at different times, but these two people were with me, one 10 years, one 20 years, really. And they were like my key people. So, when we were pricing things out, they were involved always, figuring out how much the cost was. And we were, like I said, we were a graphic design firm, but we got into video, and we got into photography, and we got into all these things. And music too. And the one thing that they were not really into was music. I mean, they like music. They both love music, but not as a saleable kind of thing. So we started getting offers to do jobs like sonic logos, or like scores for an ad. Background music for an ad, or for a video, that our clients were doing. And so when we priced these out, like there was one thing that I was going to do an ad. It was going to be for the St. Louis Public Library and blah, blah, blah. And it was going to be a TV ad and radio ad, and they were going to use this music. And I think I said, well, okay, how much do you want to charge for this? And I said, well, I think it should be it's going to be used for everything. It's a pretty big, I think we should do $1,000. Oh, $1,000. That's crazy. We're going to lose the client, Tom. We can't do that. I said, no, well, okay, what do you think? Well, maybe 200. Up 200, it's going to take me longer to, so we're arguing back and forth, and finally we settled on like $250 or $300.
Oh, did you? Okay.
So later on, one of these two, just before, I guess, when I sold the business, it was like 2012 to 13, went to work for a really big healthcare system. And he called me up and he said, Tom, listen to, he said, we just did a commercial, for the healthcare system. And he said, I want you to hear it, So we met for dinner someplace, and he's playing this thing for me. And he said, what do you think? And I said, oh, it's really good. He said, Tom, I got to tell you something. I said, what? He said, well, he said, we wanted, there was this group called, and I can't remember it, something Fire. Do you know what it is? Arctic Fire or something? I can't remember. It was like I think it was a country group. I'm not sure. But he says, I wanted something like that. And so we talked to, their manager and their publisher and everything else. And we could use it for 1 year, on restricted uses, only this, not, not forever. It'd be $1 million.
Whoa.
So $1 million. And he goes, yeah. He says, but we found this place that could sound what's something Fire? I can't. Anyway, that there was this place in Pennsylvania who could write things, jingles and stuff like that to sound kind of like other groups, right?
Yeah.
And he said, I hate to tell you this. He said, guess what it cost us to do that? But they gave us a 30-second spot, a 20-second spot, 1 minute spot. And, all of the, everything, it's all finished and orchestrated and played and everything. It was like $110,000.
Yeah.
he says, I'm so sorry. I told you you can't. I'm, oh my God. And I showed them both at the
Right,
time.
right.
Like
Yeah,
we were doing sonic logos, in other
yeah,
words,
yeah.
when somebody came in, and I did quite a few of them,
Right, right.
and I showed them this article about this woman who had she had a place in, well, it was in California. I think it was Los Angeles, might have been San Francisco. But all she did was sonic logos, and the thing was like, and what she got for them, and it was like unbelievable. I was selling them for maybe $500 or something like that, and she was making $50,000, for these things. But she was doing it for movie companies and things like that as well. But yeah,
Well, you should have gone with your original. You should have stuck to your original estimate there.
Well, it didn't make sense to me, but I thought, well, maybe they're right. Maybe we'll lose the client. They'll be ticked off that we, overcharge them for something. I don't know.
Yeah, I would have been the same way as you, I think.
Yeah. And in the meantime, the other thing is that I worked on a lot of shows. Another thing that I was interested in was like musical theater, and I've done either the lyrics or the lyrics and the music for several different shows that were all produced here in St. Louis somewhere, colleges and what have you. Yeah. And so I would write. I would do a lot of writing for that. And a lot of times I would just do the lyrics. I think that lyrics really were my strong suit, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah. But going back to the late 60s, early 70s, did you and your brother work together early on? You and John?
Well, like I said, he was studying to be a priest. So he was in the seminary when I was young. And then when he got through that, then we would do things together. Usually it was like we were trying to write songs together. Yeah. And he would give me, lyrics and tell me to put it to music. I would give him lyrics, tell him to put it to music. We tried things like that. And like I said, at that time, the first things that I was writing was really pretty bad. And some of his were bad, but his were a lot better. I mean, he was, he's like I said, 8 years older, but his were better, and he was getting into that thing, kind of in a different way, because there was a musical group of the priests, the Jesuits from that order. And they were called the St. Louis Jesuits, and they wrote a lot of, for instance, I don't know if you ever heard the song "Be Not Afraid."
Yes, I have. Yes,
it was in Dead Man Walking. What's her name? The actress who's married to Tim. What's his name? I can't answer. But she sang it to the guy on death row. She sang this song, and that was done by the St. Louis Jesuits, where my brother was a founding member of. But as soon as they became more popular and was going to be full-time,
Susan Sarandon,
yeah, right. Yeah. So she sang that in the thing. Well, that was one of the guys that he started with, and he wrote several like church kind of things. Yeah. And then when we were getting together, we would, it's not so much we wrote together, but we would perform each other's things a lot, in these concerts. So we did a family concert. It started out with, like I said, the three of them, my wife and my brother John and myself. And then we said we're not good enough musicians really to play our own stuff. And so we got other people that we knew and were friends with, and they came, and some of them played with us for years, like 30 years.
Wow.
Others, kind of came and went. Some of them were great singers. a lot of them were very good singers. So we gave everybody a chance to sing as well.
Yeah. Well, John, prior to a few years before the Dear Friends album, he recorded a double album with John Foley,
Right.
1973 Ways to Get Through.
Yeah.
But you didn't play on that one. You weren't on that one.
I think we might have sung on it, and like in the back. Well, we sang on Neither Silver Nor Gold. I don't know if we sang on that at all. I don't think so. I think it was just the two of them on that record.
Okay.
That's a very nice record. John Foley's still alive.
Is he? Okay.
And I see him every once in a while. He's here in St. Louis, but he taught me a lot too. I mean, he taught me, well, he taught me more, I think, in terms of lyric writing, you know. But, you know, I had this one song that I really liked that I did, and everybody liked it, you know, when I played it for them. And so I played it for him, and he said, well, he says, what you need is, it would have like a A part and a B part, right? And I guess it was like it was kind of a chorus and a verse, you know, kind of thing. And he said, well, you need something else. He said, you need a hook. And I said, well, isn't there? No, none of these things are a hook. He says, come up with another thing, something else different. And so I came up with something else, a third little bit, which actually became kind of like the chorus, really, the real chorus, I guess. But it was a hook, and that improved that song, you know, 100%. But he would tell me about, you know, the cadence of lines and prosody, and how the words have to fit in the not only in the pattern of the song, but also all the stresses have to be, you know, in a correct place. And so I really did learn a lot from him. And we worked on one show together, John and John. The first show that I finished, that I completed, was with him. He wrote the music, and I wrote the libretto, or the script, and all of the lyrics. And so that thing was, I think we had some really great songs, and it was.
That was West String, right?
Yes, yeah, it was West String.
Yes.
And so we had never had any part of it recorded before. And then about a year or two ago, this friend of mine, who was in one of the productions, and like she was in the chorus when she was younger, and her father was really big on recording stuff. So he recorded at least all of the songs, you know, live, you know, with a hidden tape recorder. He recorded all the songs that she was in. But I've got those songs, and I mean, I've been meaning to kind of try to clean them up as much as I can to play for John, me and John Foley. I think he would.
Oh, he would. Yeah.
He would be. I think he'd like it, but he would be critical of everything. This is terrible.
I think he would appreciate that. I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, how and where was the album Dear Friends recorded?
It's a very interesting thing also. So my brother was always really cheap. You know,
Okay.
First of all, he didn't want to go into like a real studio that, you know, that you might have to pay, you know, $20 an hour or something like that at that time.
Right.
So and the other thing was that he was like one take wonder. I mean, he said, we got to do it in one take. We don't have time to, you know. He wanted to record everything like a whole album in like 3 hours or something, if possible. So I don't know I'm trying to think where we came up with, where we first learned of this guy. I don't know if he did or I did. But there was this guy here locally, he was a teenager at the time. His name was Dave Smith. And he said, I can record it, for like $10 an hour or something like this. So my brother was happy about that. So we went, it was in his house.
Oh, all right.
And in his living room, he had his living room like a studio, right? And he had, and his parents had done all this, had let him do all this stuff, or had done it for him. They put a big picture window from the living room into the kitchen. And he had all his recording equipment in the kitchen set up. And this was like a big recording booth, kind of recording studio.
Wow.
So we recorded the whole thing there.
Those are supportive parents that'll do that.
No kidding. I mean, so he went on. He got eventually he got a partner who's, I forget his first name, but it was Lee was his last name, and they had a recording studio called Smith Lee, which was an excellent recording studio. I had recorded several times since then in their studio. They beautiful studio, and but anyway, so we recorded it there, and a lot of the stuff was like, that's it, one take. I made a mistake. Well, okay, do it one more time. Don't make a mistake. So then we had, I have the album cover.
Yeah. Hold that up. Because it's
so this is one that's not wrapped. Yes. That's wrapped still. It hasn't been opened.
Right.
This is the cover. So
it's timely that we're talking about the album right now. With the snowy winter picture.
Snow, yeah.
Right.
And what we did was, like, again, I was in graphic design then, so I designed the cover, and I wrote everything out. And maybe Maureen, my wife, might have written the liner notes. I don't know, but it's not a double album, but it was a gatefold kind of.
Yes.
And so what happened was, like, I knew at the time it was really, really expensive to print in color, right? And so I was trying to avoid that as much as possible. So I had this idea. I said, John, this is what we need to do. John knew the photographer, right? I said, we need to wait for the first snowy day. This was, and I said, we'll go to Tower Grove Park.
Yeah.
And we'll just take the pictures there. So that's what happened. We had a nice snowfall. It was beautiful. The snow was absolutely fresh. And I called John. He called the photographer, and he came right over. I mean, he met us. We all met in Tower Grove Park in St. Louis. And that's where we took the photographs. And we were just, we were playing in the snow and all kinds of stuff. This is like, so, there I am, believe it or not. And that's my brother, John. And that's my wife, Maureen.
Maureen, yeah.
And then we said, the whole thing was like, we don't have a song on it called Dear Friends. I thought it would just be nice because we were really going to be doing this for our friends. We were sending, our friends were interested in what we were doing. And so we did that. So, and then we had people playing on some of the songs. And, like, for instance, I wrote at the bottom, which is this backwards to you, or is it?
No, that's right on, straight on.
Yeah. So let's see, where is it? So I wrote, special thanks to Peter Fisher Hesed and Charlie Sluka, who played guitar on it. And I screwed up both of their names, but Peter Hesed, he was really born Peter Fisher, right? And I knew him as Peter Fisher. And then he got married, and he and his wife took a new last name, which was Hesed.
Okay.
And so he always called himself Peter Hesed. So I called him Peter Fisher Hesed on this. And since that time, he's used that on all this.
Has he? Okay.
Official Peter Fisher Hesed is his name now. I mean, it's just like, and then the other guy was like, he says, Tom, he says, I said, did everything look right? This is Charlie Sluka. And he said, He said, yeah. I said, but that's not how I spell my name. I go, it isn't? Slouchah, I think is what I
Yeah.
something. I forget what it was. I think I had Slouchah. So,
Oh,
and he
okay.
said it's Sluka, you know.
Okay.
And all this time, I worked with this guy, and I said,
Yeah.
I thought it was S. He says, no, it's great. He says, I'm thinking of changing it to that. He says, that's really a neater name than Sluka, you know.
Well, that's a good way. You know, I didn't think about that, but if you misspell their name, then they can't come back later and sue you.
That's right.
Right, right.
You never played on that. This is this other guy.
That's a different, yeah. That's somebody
Right.
else. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. So that Merlin Records West was your own private label
Right.
that it was released on. Right, right. Okay.
And as a matter of fact, what I'm doing now, I'm joining ASCAP finally, and it needs a, you know, you sign up as a writer, as a producer, and I'm signing up as both. And the production company is, so I put Sandy Mount Productions, and believe it or not, and I did a search for it. There is a Sandy Mount Productions. Then I did Sandy Mount Records, and there is a Sandy Mount Records. So I can't believe it. So I finally did something like Sandy Mount Music, and that was accepted. So that's where we're going to go. We're going back to Sandy Mount.
Okay. Well, you know, the few songs that I've heard off of the album, really nice, soft pastoral folk. You know, I really like that sound. I mean, you wrote like four tracks on the album.
I did 4, and I think John did the rest or something. I don't think we did any that were not original. Again, my brother didn't want to pay anybody for
Right,
it.
exactly.
But the funny thing is, and I'm trying to think. Oh, have you heard of Pop Psych? It's one of, there's several places on the internet that kind of
the genre.
they sell. No, it's not a genre. It's a website that sells our.
Oh, it's an actual website. Okay.
It's a website that sells vintage and rare records. And so I didn't know about this until one of the guys who worked for me. This was years ago, and he said, Tom, you did records, right? I said, yeah. He said, well, what was one? And I said, why? And he says, well, I'm going to see how much people have paid for it. You know, if I said, well, they won't have this. And so I said, yeah, dear friends. So he looks at it and goes, yeah, the top price was like $350. I go, $350? This is crazy. I got like 10 of them at home. There's unwrapped, and Maureen and I can sign it. My brother died in 2012, so he can't sign it, but we can sign it. But yeah, it's so there have been several that have, and some have sold my brother with Foley's album too. I didn't bring that up, but Ways to Get Through. But I mean, they only got like, I think the top thing was like 270 or something. So we beat them at 300. I think I don't know what it is. It's 350 was the top price, but right. Different people who sell the things, and they go for different prices depending, right. You know how.
A lot of these, the guys I talk to on here releases rarity. That label Rarity really fetches, top dollar.
Yeah.
And a lot of these albums were rediscovered or discovered for the first time decades later. So yeah.
Well, there's, like some of the people who sell them, they put on a description.
Yeah.
What the record is, and some of the descriptions for Dear Friends was like, what do you call it? Let's see. One was like religious folk. I don't know where the religious came in, exactly, but the other one was psychedelia, or something, psychedelic pop or something. Psychedelic.
I don't hear that.
I don't think we ever did anything like that.
No.
But the songs were, I don't even know what the songs were on this, to tell you the truth. Yeah. Butterfly, that was mine. Let's see.
Yes. Yes.
And then Miss Faith was John's. It's a beautiful song.
Oh, that's the first track I ever heard off the album Miss Faith. Yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Isn't
I love
that?
that song.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't do it after that. So we did it in concerts several times. I think we recorded it on another album, actually. But I think I sang it in concert a few times. And then my son, Tommy, he sang it, I think, on the album. I'm pretty sure. My brother wouldn't, he didn't want to sing that one, unfortunately, but because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But Fireflies, he wrote. When I Rise, he wrote. To Lizzie, I wrote. Then Scarlet and Brown.
That's my other favorite, Scarlet and Brown.
That is beautiful too. That John wrote that. Say Goodbye, I wrote. Mickey Filler, I wrote. I Don't Mind, I wrote. Seasons, he wrote. John wrote. And all of these songs, Butterfly, not Fireflies, To Lizzie, Say Goodbye, Mickey Filler, and I Don't Mind. I've run these things through Suno and have gotten new versions of these things. I mean, it's the melody, it's the words, but it's different singers and different arrangements, and they're absolutely fantastic. It's just a wonderful thing for me to be able to listen to it. And I think I told you that I was planning to put up a new YouTube channel, just for my songs, and I just haven't had time yet to do it. Plus, like I said, I'm joining ASCAP for the first time. I found out that it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, and it's going to be like 4 to 6 weeks until I find out if they've taken me in it, which is kind of crazy. But I want to go through the whole thing. I want to have somebody distribute it, and I want people to be checking to see if it's been used and stuff. I have a couple songs that are they're not popular kinds of songs, but they're like special purpose kinds of songs that a lot of people like. And I'm thinking of they're all, in a sense, they're all copyrighted because they've all been recorded, and a lot of them on albums and things like that. But I do want to copyright all of them, and as group copyrights on some of them, album copyrights on most of them, and then just a few individual copyrights on a few songs before I put everything up. But I'm planning. What I'd like to do is I've got a few Irish things that I'd like to put up. One song in particular that that people like a whole lot, but it's really strange. It's really something. It's an Irish. You've heard of the Irish blessing. I don't know. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. So years ago, about 1990 something, 92 or 93, I wrote a version of that. And since it was just one phrase, basically one sentence long, I decided to do a counter melody, different song, different lyrics to that. And it was kind of like farewell till we meet again, it's whatever. And so, the one plays the main melody, and then the counter melody goes by itself, and then you put them together a third time. You put the two together, and so we started doing this in concerts, and people were requesting it, and things like that in other years, and people were asking for the music, or asking for the lyrics, and asking for the music, and asking. And I found out that a lot of these people were using it for funerals. Oh. It's a big hit at funerals. I mean, a lot of people want this played at their funerals if they're Irish, and whatever. Yeah. And so that one, I would like to, I would like to copyright.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Register the copyright.
Register. Right. Well, a few other things I wanted to hear about. How did the Irish Imports concerts begin?
Well, again, John came back, played that album, Planksty album, And it blew my mind. I mean, it was just so fantastic. It was so sophisticated and clever and beautiful and everything. And so we kind of, the three of us kind of decided right there and then that we have to share this music with St. Louis. St. Louis didn't know anything about Irish music at the time, really. It wasn't our father's music, definitely. I mean, he would have liked it. He would have liked it, but it wasn't the old kind of dance music kind of stuff. So, so we said, we can all sing. John and I can play guitar really badly. Let's try that and do some of their songs. Now I still had we still had our cousins in Ireland, and my cousin's husband ran a record store in Galway City. And so he had access to a lot of Irish groups as well. He had all the pop things and, rock things and everything else too. But he had Irish music as well. So our cousin would send us stuff, send us tapes, at the time. And so we really got a collection of some of the greatest Irish music performers. A lot of these new groups that were coming up, you've heard of Enya, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Enya was part of a family that had a group called Clannad.
Clannad, yeah, Clannad.
She sang with them for a while.
Yeah, she did. Yes,
and so that whole family, so they had a group that we really liked. I really liked Clannad in the early days. I loved them in the early days because they were doing jazzy arrangements. The guy had a big double bass that he was playing beautifully, and they were fantastic then. I mean, they all became like kind of new agey at some point, and they still were really good. And Enya, I think, is really good, even though she was really new agey. I really liked her when she was really hot. But they were just two of the people. There were dozens others of small groups and things like this that became really, really big and did some beautiful, beautiful music. And I was lucky enough, like I said, I wanted to bring them to St. Louis. Yeah. And so I contacted Plankste's manager, and I said, I want to. Are they going to be on tour? No. Yeah. I said, well, I would really like to produce a concert there. I'll raise the money and I'll do the thing. And he said, well, you can't do it. They're not together anymore. He says they're getting together as a different configuration, but they're, the members are here. This was like 75 or 76. I don't know. And so he said, but what I can do, one of the main guys in the group is Andy Irvine.
Yes.
And I said, he is going with two other guys, Kevin Burke, who is a fantastic fiddle player.
Yeah, yes.
And he's still alive. He's still there. And Micheál O'Donnell. And Micheál O'Donnell is like my favorite singer in the world. He died about years ago now. But he's like my favorite singer. I have a couple others, but male singers. But so he came, the three of them, Kevin Burke, Micheál O'Donnell, and Andy Irvine. They came to St. Louis. We had like a sellout crowd who waited for them for like 2 hours. They didn't know who these people were, but they were caught up at the airport or something like this, or getting into their flight and everything else. They came eventually, and they just blew everybody away. And I think half the people there went on to do, to love Irish music, the rest of their lives, basically. But and then we also brought other groups in too after that. But with us, we said, well, we'll start, and like I said, it was the three of us, and we got some people to play with us. We got a good violinist who was not used to playing fiddle, but he did a great job. He played with us 1 year, and then we had a couple. We had different singers. We had our own Kevin Burke, who was not related to the other Kevin Burke, but he is a great singer and also a great songwriter, and he played guitar beautifully. And he was with us for a couple of years, and Tim Mannion was with us for a couple of years, I think. And then we got, like I said, we got Jack Renard, who can play a bunch of different stringed instruments really, really well, but especially mandolin. And he'd played with us for 20 years or so, I guess, 78. Yeah. And then Peter Herbig, who is also gone now, but a younger guy, and he was a masterful guitarist, really excellent guitarist. And he really, the two of them really gave us, everything we needed. We could stop playing if we had to, So, and we did that. We did it like every St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, St. Patrick's, right. For what, 30 years?
It's like 30 years, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
From the mid 70s to the mid 2000s. And, 2005, 2006. Actually, we actually did another concert. My brother died in 2012, but we did a concert in 2019 with Maureen, myself, and our children who had been, our adult kids who had been with us since the 90s, probably. They started performing with us beginning in the late 90s, I guess, or mid 90s. So we did a concert in 2019, and that was the final, I guess, But, and Jack played at that. Jack Renard played at that as well. And we got a good recording of that, a very nice recording, because that's another thing. But we did a direct feed from the board actually into the video camera, and at that time I had a really good video camera, so that recording sounds very good. And we've never released it as anything, but.
Any thoughts about releasing it maybe one day?
Well, we have a lot of stuff. I mean, I guess we could. We did we did a split concert with another group called the Wee Heavies, and they were an a cappella group here in St. Louis. Fantastic singers and arrangers, and oh my God, great. And I have been meaning. I have their part of the thing recorded. It's videotaped, so I have the video, but it was just a stationary camera that I set up. But the audio sounds fantastic, and I've been meaning to get that over to them for years, and I could never. I was, oh my God, they'll all be dead by the time I.
Right.
Crazy. So. Good luck with us.
Right.
And the other thing is like. The thing that's a little strange is sometimes we do other newish songs, done in the 1990s or 1980s or something like that, and that would complicate it. I guess we could take those out or try to, go to Harry Fox or something or whoever and see if they can get releases for them or pay royalties or whatever. But those things make it a little more complicated. They're not all our own songs, but.
Okay. Well, I want to hear too a little bit about your foray into children's musicals with the Clown of God and also Angelina, the Bad Little Angel of Bethlehem. Right. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And all the spin-offs of Angelina too. We did a lot of DVDs. Oh, as a matter of fact, I've got some things.
Oh, you got okay.
Let me see if I can pull these out. I brought some things that I produced and some things that I had written. But here is here's little Angelina, and this is an interactive CD-ROM. if you remember what those things were like. So kids could actually play with them on their computers. They could do things with them, and it's really crazy. But we did all of the graphics and stuff. My company did, and things like that. But it was another company that produced it. And they produced a lot of different things. They did a lot of videos, and were animated videos. And so the artist, the designer who worked for me was Joanne Halsey. She did this little character. What happened was, my friend Peter Hesed, who was Peter Fisher Hesed, he was at a particular school, and he said, Tom, he said, there are these little shows that people write for grade school kids to do, and like a third grade thing, and they do a little, and people send these things, people sell these things, and we have to pay $100 each time we, whatever the thing was. He said, why don't we write one? And I said, okay. I said, well, he says, we've got one coming up. We need one. They did one. He says, with theirs, it's an all school thing, all school. So, okay. So I said, well, and it has to be, it's a Christmas pageant kind of a thing. And so I said, okay, let me think about it. So again, I had a graphic design firm, but I went to lunch one day and I spent like 3 hours at lunch, but I came back, I had written an entire scenario out. I created the character, the name of the character, what she was like. I knew somebody who had a daughter in that school, and the daughter was in like 5th grade, and she had red hair, and she was real spunky, fun, a great little actress, great little singer. So I'm thinking, oh, we'll just put her in. Well, you can't do that. the 8th graders had to be the lead, performers.
Yes, the older ones, yeah.
She didn't get it, unfortunately, but I kind of wrote it for her. And I went to Peter and I said, okay, here's the thing. Here are some song possibilities in different places. And I had it all listed out. I think we had, I don't know, 8 or 10 songs for the show. And so we wrote it, he did the music, I did the lyrics and the script, and they did the show, and it was a big success and everything else. And then it was like, it was so good, really, the music was so good. Peter writes incredible music, and he can do like any style. So we thought, well, what can we do with this? And a friend, so skip ahead years, I don't know how many years, but a couple of years. And there was a guy that I had known here in St. Louis. He was not a client of mine, but after he left and went to New York to work in a big company, it was a big cable company. He went to work there. He knew about this thing, and he called me up and he said, Tom, this Angelina thing. He says, have you ever thought about doing a cartoon version? I said, Ed, I can't afford to get, no. Well, we would do this. And I said, yeah. He says, I'll tell you what, I'll fly you out here to New York. I want you to meet with this guy. He said, would you be open to having a ghostwriter, work on the script, with you? I said, sure, absolutely. So we went, this was in August. Okay? Went out there to New York and met with this guy, this script writer. He had read all this stuff. He'd listened to the music and all this other kind of stuff. he was wonderful. This guy he had done a lot of writing for music, for theater in New York, and as a script doctor. He's not a ghostwriter, script doctor. And he said, can we, let's work together, let's do this, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So it looked like it was a go. We were going to do a cartoon version. I don't know if you know Ken Page, if you know who Ken Page is, but he's from St. Louis. He's an actor. He was in Cats. He was old Mephistopheles or whatever his name is. Anyway, he was going to be the narrator in this thing.
Oh, all right.
I mean, we had contacted him to get prices and everything else. The thing was like a go, right? For this company, which is kind of a religious cable network. Okay. It was like a religious cable network. And they were going to do animation. It was going to be like maybe animation with, partial animation and partial live action kind of thing. Some characters would be live with cartoon. I mean, it was really going to be really, really neat. And so this guy, his office, he had a beautiful office overlooking the famous church in Manhattan. I can't remember what the name of it is. But anyway, it was overlooking. He was like 6 or 7 stories up, looking down on this church, this beautiful church. And he says, come over. He says, I could get you a hotel room, but why don't you stay with us? I've got a new place right across the river. And so there were 3 ways we could get there. We could take the ferry, or we could take the tunnel, or we could, there were different ways to get over to his place in New Jersey, really. We got over there, and his place is fantastic and beautiful. And he says, okay, we saved the great thing for you, and the bedroom for you is really fantastic. We had dinner. We went there was this big bed in this room, and the room was like semicircular wall with drapes over the whole thing. And he says, just lay down on the bed. I said, okay. I lay down on the bed. He goes, now watch this. And he opened the drapes like that. And it was the New York skyline with the Twin Towers right in front of me. He says, you can watch TV if you want, but a lot of people just watch things. And that's what I did. I stayed up. I fell asleep a couple times and woke up at different times, see the lights go on and off and things like this. God, this is the most beautiful thing in the world. This was August. September 11th was 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away. And when that happened, I called him up, and couldn't get a hold of him. Couldn't get a hold of him for like a week. Finally, I left messages. We did everything, sent emails and everything. I didn't know what the hell happened to him. Finally called up, and he said, of course, that puts the whole thing, Angelina, on hold. We can't really do that now, but it's still in the works, blah, blah, blah. He said, we have some reconstruction work to do. The whole side of his building where his office was overlooking was torn off, right? Yeah. And he said, the church, Maureen, do you remember the name of that church? St. John. St. John Lateran, I think is it. No, the one in New York. St. John the Evangelist? Okay. I think so. But anyway, that place, he said, and he sent me a photograph, I think, was covered with white ash.
Yeah.
But it was not touched. I mean,
it wasn't. Yeah. It was
totally intact. It had what? St. John the Divine. St. John the Divine. It had a graveyard out there, and the whole thing was covered with white ash in September. So they had a lot of cleanup to do. And then he said, well, we have to wait. He says, we'll do something. He says, I guess in November he called me back. He says, well, we've got some news. He says, I think it's good news. I think it's really good news. I said, okay, what is that? He goes, well, our company's been bought out by Hallmark. I go, Hallmark? He goes, yeah, but they do family stuff. They do. I said, yeah, but I don't think they do religious stuff, you know? And he goes, yeah, I'll talk to them. I have a meeting with them in January the 3rd or whatever the thing is. And I'm a vice president or whatever. And I can, I think we can, they'll love this thing. So of course, then he had to call back and say, they're changing their whole thing. It's going to be like romance movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what happened to Angelina. It never happened. Yeah. Although we did I did a whole album of, and I don't know what I did with it. It's not this. Oh yeah, maybe this. No, this is the CD-ROM. But I did a CD of songs with Angelina singing them, and they were like, I think it was called Say Your Prayers. I'm not sure, but they were like all prayers. And we did a review kind of those things. We did a little show with kids. Yeah. They were like from like third through 8th grade, I think it was, in this. And they were like from all over. We had auditions, I think, for these kids. And so they were these kids from 3rd to 8th grade. And they did this show, and it was all choreographed and everything else, doing those songs. And so it didn't really completely die out. And we did a lot of these videos, with this company, and some CD-ROM and things like that with Angelina. But yeah. she's just, and I don't know if they ever did another show of it, but we have some recordings of it, but I don't know.
Well, you also wrote the lyrics to the musical The Clown of God.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Peter, again, said he was looking for the next project. And he says, have you ever heard of Tommy DePaola? And I said, no. And he said, well, he's written a bunch of these children's books that he illustrates. And there's like was it Seganona or something like that? I can't remember what it is, but I mean, he's got some famous ones. Probably the most famous is The Clown of God, which is based on an old tale that some people attribute it to France, some Italy, some say it's from Spain and things like that. But it is about a clown who goes into a church on Christmas Eve. And the only thing he knows how to do, everybody else is giving these gifts they're bringing gifts up to the little baby, the statue of the little baby. And so he doesn't know what to do. So when everybody's gone, he juggles for the baby. And then the priests come in and they say, oh my God, this is a sacrilege. You can't do this.
Right.
And so anyway, there's like a miracle that happens at the end of this. I don't want to be a spoiler for it.
No, don't spoil it.
But so he said, well, there's this book, and I read it. I go, yeah, this is great, and I can see where there would be songs. And so I said, but we really need to use these exact words. I'd like to use the graphics of Tommy DePaola. And he said, well, let's find out about it. So he did some research and found out that Tommy DePaola was still alive then. And I don't know if he is now. I think he is, maybe not. But he had to work with his manager and his publisher and all this other kind of stuff. And they said, well, you can use the words from the book, but they have to be exactly as is, right? And you cannot use the actual art. You can't use his art. You can use something similar to it. And so I wrote it so that the songs were standalone. They were not. I mean, they were part of the storyline, but they were not. They were not using any of the words from the book. the book would be read or would be memorized. But I think one time it was read. We've done it like 3 or 4 times. I mean, it's been done many, many times, a dozen times or so from different schools and things like this. It's been published. It has a publisher. And we did it first at this beautiful little church in downtown St. Louis called Christ Church Cathedral. And we had a great actor. He was my kind of mentor in college. And a very good actor himself, wonderful voice. And we had sold out for like 3 nights or 4 nights, I think. And so the first night he did it. It was really wonderful. And the next day he called up and he said, "Tom, I can't do it." He said, I had an attack of vertigo.
Oh, wow.
And he says, I can't stand up. I can't do anything. And we said, well, who knows? The thing is timed with music and the songs. Everything is timed, you know. And so the only one, Peter said, well, you're the only one who can do it. You know, you're the only one who knows the timing of the thing other than Walsh, you know. So I did it for the next, 3 nights. Okay. I was the narrator as well. And I just got up to the pulpit and I just read it from the book, but I did know the timing of everything. Yeah. And they recorded it. They made a record of it. I mean, and it's we videotaped one. We've done it. When I say we, I mean Peter Hesed and I have been involved in, I guess, 3 or 4 different productions of it. One was it was chosen as a production piece for this Catholic musicians organization. It's a big Catholic musicians organization, and they had their convention every year, a different place. And this particular year was going to be in Cincinnati, and so they wanted to do it. They have like one night where they do some sort of a production, like a concert or something. And so they wanted to do this, The Clown of God. So we had to get actors here and a director and a set designer, and then send the set to Cincinnati. We all got on buses. Peter had to score the thing so that musicians in Cincinnati could play it. And it was phenomenal. It was really, really incredible, but it was tough for a few things. It's like the union in Cincinnati, the musicians union said, if you go over 1 minute, we walk out. I said, well, we'll pay you extra. No. You cannot go over 1 minute. I'm like, shit. So
you had to be on cue. You had to be tight with that.
Right. Oh my God. Yes. So, but that is really it's such great music, and I think it's some of the best lyrics that I've ever written. Also, but that's one of the nicest things that I've really worked on. It's really great, and I just wish that I think Peter sent a recording of it, or I sent a video to Tommy DePaola. I don't know if anything ever came of that, but I've seen now that they've done it as like operas badly. I mean, I've seen. I shouldn't say that because maybe the guy who wrote it is listening or something. I don't know. But I wasn't too impressed with the opera. But they used his art completely, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Well, a couple more things I want to hear about. Explain what the Coming Home concert was.
Okay, so I told you about my brother being a founding member of this group called the St. Louis Jesuits, and they have their music has had a big following. They were like the first like guitar group kind of thing from the late '60s, early '70s to 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 have kind of a nationwide and worldwide following, and they're in all the hymnals and things like that. Their songs are in the hymnals, and it started out they were all scholastics, or studying to be priests, who were located at St. Louis University at the same time. And they all got together. They were all songwriters, and really great songwriters. I mean, really some great songwriters. And over the years, they developed a following, but especially in St. Louis, from the old gray hairs like me who remember them. And so they were, they every once in a while, they might come back and do something in St. Louis. You never hear about it. And I thought this was terrible. And so there was a thing. I got a call from somebody I knew at St. Louis University in the public relations department, and she said, "Tom, I know you know these guys. The Jesuits. They're coming to St. Louis to be in our, some kind of an event that St. Louis University was having, and they just built this big auditorium. It was like a hockey rink. I mean, it was huge. It was one of these huge things." And she said, "I didn't have a lot of time because we just found out that we could get them, like 2 weeks ago. But, I don't know why she was calling me to ask me if I could help her publicize it or something. I don't know. But she said, well, you should go and see it and, say hi to them and everything else. They're all in town. Now, there's one, Foley is in town. He lives in town still. But the others are all out of town. And so Maureen and I went, and we also had the same night, we had another friend who was performing at another smaller concert hall, just about less than a mile away, from this. And I said, well, how are we going to do both? Well, we said, well, we'll stop and, see, the Jesuits and, see if we can hear their thing. They were only going to do like 3 or 4 songs. And then we'd go over to the other one, Well, we went early to the one where the Jesuits were going to play. And we looked into this huge skating rink kind of a thing with a big floor with chairs and all the thing, chairs on the floor. And then, all the arena style seating above and on the sides. And this was like 10 minutes before they were supposed to start or something. I don't know what it was, a half an hour before it was going to start or something. And it was like nobody in there, maybe 100 people in this huge place. And I said that there was a woman, he was like coming out. I said, are the Jesuits going to be, are they going to be playing tonight? She said, oh yeah, they're going to be playing this. This is going to be, they're coming up next, and they might be 10 minutes, they might be a half an hour before they play, but they'll be playing. So I said, okay, we have to have a new thing. So I said, Maureen, let's go to the other one and see part of that, and for a half an hour, and then leave. So we went over there, and we came back, and we're trying to find a place to park that's not too far away. And there are people who are leaving that place.
Really? Wow.
What's going on? Yeah. And so, we went up and looked in, and the place was empty. Mm-hmm. And I said, what happened? They said, well, they came on, and they just did like 2 songs, and then they left. And then I said, oh, well, I want to go back and see them. And somebody stopped me. Oh, no, you can't go back. I said, no, I know these guys. I'm a friend, No, you can't go back. I said, okay. So anyway, they were a little disappointed about this thing.
Sure.
And so the next year, I retired. Let's see. I guess it was, yeah, in January I retired, and there was a funeral that I attended, and there was like a little reception after the funeral, and somebody said, "Oh, there's Tim Mannion over there, one of the guys in the Jesuits." I go, "Are you kidding me? Where?" So I went over and talked to him, and he goes, "Yeah, we were talking." He said, "Tom," he said, we had kind of not a great experience. We didn't have any people there to see us." I said, it's a shame." He says, "We'd like to do another concert in St. Louis with the whole group, but, Sean Foley is too old to handle anything." And he says, Rock O'Connor, he's up in like Minnesota or something. He says he would kind of do it, but he's not here. He can't do it here. I said, "Well, look, I just retired. And when I retired, I felt like, oh, I got a new burst of energy. I wanted to do something."
Yes.
I said, "I will do it. I'll do it for free if you want. I'll help him. I can be the person here in St. Louis." So, so then Rock O'Connor called me and he says, "Hey, I hear that you're going to, you'll do this." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I've got some ideas." And I wrote. And so basically I came up with the set list. There are all kinds of problems when you're working with different people, and different backgrounds.
Oh, yeah.
All have their egos and all this other. And so I said, so the first thing was like, where are we going to do it? And I said, "I think you should do it at Powell Hall, which is a symphony hall. And it holds, I think it's like 1,900 or something like that. Or no, maybe it's 2,700. I can't remember exactly, but it's around 2,000 something, 2,400 maybe." And he said, "Oh, they're never going to go for that." I go, "Why not?" "Because they don't want to be embarrassed. Nobody's going to show up to this." I said, "Trust me." I said, I know I can do this. So he said, "Well, okay." So he would travel back down here every once in a while, and we met with the people. Oh, so again, yeah, he talked to the other guys, and they were like, "No way, we're not going to do it there. We'll make fools of ourselves and blah blah blah." And so then they finally they some of them called me up and they said, "Okay, a group call. Okay, if you just fill up half of the orchestra, we'll be happy." I said, "Okay, fine. Okay, you'll be happy." So then we're going along, and I used to be in public relations also. I did public relations for 7 years or 8 years. And I always did, public relations and marketing for my own projects. So I said, what I knew is this: if I could just get the word out to these old gray-haired fans who are here in St. Louis, not to say the other fans around the world and around the country, that's all I need to do. I don't need to do much more than that. So I was confident. And then they came up and they said, "Well, look, we want to pay you something." And I said, "I'll tell you what. If I sell out, you pay me X amount of dollars." It's quite a bit. And I said, if I do not sell out, that's the one ticket that's not paid for or given away by you guys. Nothing. You don't have to pay me a penny. And they go, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And I said, "Yeah." So we came back and then they agreed to it. So it's like, so the thing was in October, right? And I think, and I have this friend here in St. Louis, and I was telling him all the stuff that I was going to do. And he said, "Tom, you're going to sell out. I guarantee you'll sell out by July 13th. That's what he said. We sold out on July 13th.
Oh, wow.
Which was really crazy.
How prophetic. Yeah.
Yeah. But, and then I would send them, all of the sheets of who was coming and everything else like this and how many people. And when it got to be like half filled, they were going, "What are you?" They were mad at me. "What are you doing? You're filling this thing. You're selling too many too fast." It was like in March, right? Yeah. And I said, "What are you worried about? What are you upset about?" "Well, now that people might not get the tickets in time." I said, "Well, tell them to get the tickets, or put some aside for them if you know somebody."
Yeah.
But we had people from Australia, and we had people from Europe, and we had people from Asia, and it's just like, we had people from all over to come to this. And we did have a lot of people who could not get tickets.
Yeah.
But that's all I cared about. I mean, the other thing is that there were other very interesting things about this, but basically that was it. So my friend who predicted July 13th calls me Sellout Tom now.
Oh, well, two days after my birthday. Mine's the 11th. So that's
wow.
Well, and then I want to hear about the two local symphonic composers you're currently working with.
Yeah, they are great. So I've gotten involved with a group of musicians who, they say we're Romeos, we're retired old men who eat out. Right. Eating out. So we get together and we've done this from the start of COVID, actually, all the way through COVID, and then first there was only a couple of us, but anyway, we get together, and some of these guys are just terrific fun. I mean, they're so great, so much fun. And then I would find out, I go, like, why, what have you done and all this stuff? And I'm finding out, holy cow, you've done this, and you've been played by symphony orchestras and all this other kind of stuff. And wow. And I listen to their music and I go, oh my God, this is incredible. This is so incredible. And so there are two of them who are really have been serious composers, for a long time. One is a little bit older than I am, and he's had the most success. He's been played around. I mean, a lot of people have done, but his things are very. He was he was not a student of, but a kind of a follower in some way of John Cage, who's like,
oh, okay, yeah.
But his stuff is both of their things are very palatable, very easy to like and understand. Now they're very hypnotic, usually the stuff that they do. I love all of their stuff. The other guy is much younger than I am, but and he's like a genius, and he does everything by mathematics. He's got a mathematical thing that he does for his music, but it also is really wonderful. I find it just really wonderful. And I said, but he has done everything with basically synthesizers or these different programs that just do not sound good. But I can hear past that. But I keep telling him, dude, you've got to do this with real musicians, real people,
real instruments, and
really record it. Do a good recording of this thing, and then you'll send it out to symphony orchestras, and they'll love this. So the two of them came to me and said, okay, how about if we do a two-part concert? One is, the first half is X. And well, their name, one is Stephen Jones. He's the one that does the mathematical kind of deal. And the other is Michael Hunt. And he's the one that's the more accomplished, musician. And they said we could split it and do it at this really good small concert hall in St. Louis. It's got fantastic acoustics, get really great musicians, and put it together if you will produce it, if you'll do it, if you'll. And I said, Okay, okay. I keep thinking I'm retired, and I was like, I know it's, but so I said, okay. And so we met with the people. This is from the Sheldon Concert Hall in St. Louis. We met with the people from the Sheldon, got the thing worked out, got a date, but it's very complicated with the musicians because we want the best musicians, and it's hard. They have to know exactly if they can make the rehearsals, when the rehearsals are, and we don't want to rent the Sheldon for rehearsals because it's $500 a night. So we're looking for other rehearsal space to lead up to the. We're just going to do 2 rehearsals out of the Sheldon, and then the day of the concert, we're going to do 1 rehearsal before the thing on the stage. So, and we're set up right now with to do it on April the 12th, but we might move that date if we're still having trouble getting rehearsal space and getting the musicians. We had one person to actually find these musicians and round them up and get the best ones. And she said, I have to drop out. I've got too much going on in my life. I can't do it. So we found this other guy, and he says, well, it's going to be more expensive than you thought, but he loves their music, this guy. And he said, oh, I want to do it. He wants to do it. So if it doesn't work out in time, then we have another date in May. Let's see, April, May. No, that isn't May. April, May, June, and June. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm really excited about it.
What size orchestra are you looking at?
Well, it's 12 pieces all together, but they're not all playing at the same time. So one person's thing needs a harp, and the other, then so that harp plays just one piece out of all of the pieces that they do, and then but like if there's a pianist, and he or she will play every piece, and then we have some strings, we have a double bass, and we have I think we have an oboe in there, and but all of these things together. See, no percussion. I don't think we have any percussion. But so the most that's going to be on the stage at one time is like 5. Will be on the stage for any particular song. But there are 12 of them all together. 12 people we need all together.
Okay. Well, hopefully that'll all come together. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know if
Yeah. Keep me posted on that. Yeah. All right. Well, can you think in closing anything else that may have omitted or you'd like to mention?
Well, just that it would be nice if people knew about, when I do this channel. So I do a YouTube channel, and the thing that I want to do with it is I want to videotape myself talking about playing the original song that we recorded in the 1971 or 72, and then playing different versions of the song that have come through AI.
Yeah.
And just talk about each one of the songs and a little bit about them, and kind of my journey to where I am, and where I hope to have enough time to go.
Right. Well, you just hit on the word journey. To me, that's what my channel's about. It's just sharing your journey. Yeah.
You should really talk to first of all, there's a third guy who is another guy that is fascinating. He's so funny, and he has so much musical experience, and he plays like clarinet and flute and saxophone and all these other instruments. But he's been in a lot of different groups, and of all sorts, jazz groups, and he is hysterically funny. And Michael Hunt is also funny in a different way. He's a raconteur, and he tells stories and jokes that he's just hilarious. But they would be great on your show, if you could.
Yeah. After this, just message me if you have contact info or how to get in touch, and yeah, I'll reach out. Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome, Tom. And I just want to say all the best to you and all your future endeavors. And do keep me up to date, keep me posted, on the goings on and anything you'd like to send my way. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Do you have a Dear Friends album?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
I will send you one.
Oh, all right. That sounds great. Yeah.
Maureen and I will sign it.
Hey, there you go. There you
I
go.
can sign it for my brother too. I know his handwriting. It won't be the same though.
You know his handwriting. Okay.
Yeah. I'd be happy.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah.
Send me your information where I can send it to and everything.
Sure, I will. I will do. All right then. And speaking of the album cover, we're looking for this weekend some snowy, at least some sleet, but really cold weather.
And where are you located?
20 miles northeast of Dallas.
Okay.
So yeah, we rarely get it. Maybe one or 2 days of winter, we'll get some snow or sleet, but then it melts. It doesn't stick around for long. So
it just showed on television today one of the grocery stores in Dallas that was empty. All the shelves.
Right. We freak out here. You guys up north, you're used to it. But anytime we get something like that, they notify us days in advance or a week, and everybody's freaking out. Everybody's like, "Oh no, we can't drive on this." All the crazy drivers. Everybody starts really freaking out about it. So, yeah, because it's so rare.
Well, just be careful.
We will definitely. All right then. Again, best wishes to you, and keep in touch. And I'll say bye for now, but not forever. All right.
That's great.
All right.